Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everyone. We have choices. We are responsible for our lives. I know that's kind of a harsh statement, but we really are. Everything that takes place is a choice, right down to the things that you think, the things that you say to yourself, either verbally or just the thoughts you're having, others around you. Imagine reframing that in a positive way, realistically positive. I'm not talking about putting the rose-colored glasses on and just, ignoring everything, but having a more positive outlook will bring you more joy and positivity in your life. Okay, Steve, easier said than done. Call upon a professional. This is out of your wheelhouse. I have her right here. She has a wonderful center in Massachusetts that, with a staff of many, helping people reframe their lives and have a positive outcome, overcoming lots of challenges. She's our Diamond of the Decade. Sherri Alexandrovich joins us once again on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. How about yourself?
Real good, real good. It's a work in progress for all of us, I believe, in terms of staying positive. And I just want to put that disclaimer in there. This is not Steve and Sherri walking around pretending everything's great, everything's great. No, life has challenges. We get that.
Sure.
But how do you look at those challenges? How do you talk to yourself about them? Even just day-to-day stuff. What type of language are you using and how you can reframe that? Sherri, can we go back to the beginning? When we were these fresh, bright-eyed children with nothing jaded yet. A 5-year-old looks at the world. They can do anything. They have, everything's a wonderful experience. There's learning and curiosity. And then the changes take place. I know we've talked about that briefly before. Can we go back there just to illustrate the rewiring of the brain? And then when you get to adult life, how we can rewire it back to maybe before, things changed as a kid.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm a firm believer that we're blank slates when we're born. Right. So we don't have any experiences outside of whatever our in utero experiences are. And that, opinion on that kind of varies, pretty greatly depending on who's talking about it. So our first really experiences is upon birth. And it really will stem back to how our needs were or were not cared for or tended to and what that looks like. And that is going to shape and change how we perceive certain situations. So if we're a baby whose needs were never met and we cry ourselves to sleep, we cry because we haven't been fed, we cry because we haven't, had our diaper changed. And I'm not talking the tough love kind of let them cry it out, self-soothe type. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about neglected children, failure to thrive, kiddos whose basic needs were absolutely not met. What happens in their tiny little brains is that they can adopt one of a few different philosophies in life. One is at a most basic level, because obviously at infancy, they can't articulate that, but the feeling in itself is there of not being good enough, not being cared for, needs not being met. And that can morph into a variety of different attention-seeking behaviors or isolative behaviors because they don't feel like they have a voice or they're important enough to voice what their needs are. So fundamentally, if we're talking about, children and how those things are formed at infancy stage, that's what we would be talking about. As kids get older and start to play in the playground or have experiences, with discipline or experiences with their peers, that also shapes how our brain is wired. And as much as we can shape our brains in a positive or negative way, we can reshape them into a positive or negative way. And I think that's an important message that I want people to hear, is that as our brains are responding or our nervous system is responding to a negative experience, that doesn't mean that every time we have that experience, that same negative outcome is going to happen. that becomes really overwhelming, I think, for people who have been victimized 3 or 4 different times, or exploited, or have had negative experiences in that same realm, to believe that there is a potential that that next experience could be different, or that we can shape that next experience by being open-minded to it. And so I really want to emphasize pretty strongly that we all have that internal power, that internal ability to flip that script and be able to start making some small changes towards more positive forward movement. And we are, in essence, our own worst critic, every one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about that, we don't believe everything we hear. We don't believe everything we see. So why do we believe everything that our brains are telling us with such concrete evidence? Because our brains are really just spitting back at us a skewed version of its experience in whatever negative place that has been. But we were not born with the knowledge that if we go to school, all kids are bullies, right? That information is formed and shaped through experiences of working with other bullies. But that doesn't mean that everybody that we come across is a bully. Does that make sense?
It does. And I totally agree with you that every child is a fresh slate, a fresh piece of clay. And then it starts getting molded. And having needs met as a child doesn't necessarily mean that your parents weren't attentive or didn't love you or any of that. Some kids need a little bit more. Some parents don't deliver that. A lot of other stuff going on, a lot of other factors involved there. And, we're factoring out those situations where, major challenges, abuse, things like that. No, just a, normal, call it normal, average. Take the word normal out. Average childhood. And there it begins. But I mean, it's wonderful to hear that we can flip that around. Those things that we've seen, those feelings of self-worth, those feelings of maybe not feeling you deserve things in your life, or maybe you do feel you deserve them, but you're afraid to ask for them. That's another one. Why not? It's all of that that was shaped in our childhood. Would you say that aside from a major event past your childhood, like 90% of this is common between the ages of birth and 7, somewhere around there, maybe even pre-birth. Some believe that as well, in the womb, all of that. But most of it is right there in the childhood.
I would say, I don't know if I could put a percentage on there of 90%, because I think everybody's situation is different. But yes, I think that our experiences with the world, for sure, our first 7 years are our formative years. Absolutely. I would agree with that. Formative and negative or positive, I think it really is all that is, super situational. And I try to stay away from, generalization or categorizing that, one particular, that trauma begins or ends at a specific stage, because
Sure.
I think that is, that's pretty transient throughout, depending on the purpose or the person's personal life. But yes, our experiences, that's how we learn to get our needs met. Our words, if we can't talk, it's sign language. Understanding how to ask for things, how to play with other people, how we interact with other people, how people meet our needs. I mean, that all of that are core elements of who we are as a person. And then we start school, and those experiences are really important as well, because our environment, our school teachers, our principals, our peers, our the neighborhood kids, you go over to your friends' houses and you see how they're parenting, what their parent structure looks like. And so that really, opens up a world of different possibilities. And then depending on what your family culture looks like, extended family, beliefs, norms, all of that, we're so eclectic as individuals and where we learn and are shaped by things. And I think that culture plays such a huge part in who we are as a person. and shapes what our expectations are as well, I think, because there are some family cultures where family is grandparents are living in the home, aunts and uncles living in the home, it's the community, it's the village raising the kiddos, everybody plays a part in it, where there are some family structures where it's just the mom or just the dad or the grandparents or foster care. So I do think that, that a kiddo's culture and environment and upbringing is really important to who they become and what their belief in the world is as well.
I think back to things when I was a kid and things that my parents and or relatives would say. I'll be honest, not a bad childhood, but I think back to some of those things. And I'm like, whoa, that's not, I don't pilot by that, because the little comments here and there, assumptions made by, somebody might look a certain way and all of that. It was a different generation back then as well. But to your point, those things are out there as children, and we're no better words ever spoken. Kids are sponges, just sopping it all in,
Right.
all these little things here, and then just processing it as best you can as a kid. So now we get to adult life, where we're piloted with the stuff that essentially, would I be right in saying, Sherri, that our brains were rewired as children because they came fresh? They were rewired by our situations, circumstances, all of that. Is that a rewiring there? And then we're talking about now rewiring back or out of certain modes?
Yeah, so I think initially we're wiring, because if there isn't any, if we're a blank slate when we're born,
fair enough.
there is,
Fair enough.
right? So we're not wiring the negativity, we're wiring ourselves based on experiences, culture, family dynamics, and those could be positive or negative. And then the subsequent experiences could rewire and reshape whether that, that original experience was negative or positive. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. Thank you for that, because it's a fresh wiring, if you will.
Yeah, it is a fresh wiring when we're born, correct. And then, but you know what the wonderful, wonderful thing about our brains is that it can always be rewired again. There's no time limit. There's no number of tries that you have. There's no 3 strikes you're out. There's no at 65. There's no coming back. And I think that's one of the really, really super important messages that I want everybody to know, is that regardless of your situation or situations or experiences, we always 100% of the time have the opportunity to effectuate change, to want to do things differently. Sometimes other people's challenges are harder than others, but when you go into therapy, that restructuring is one of the foundations of what we do. And that's why it's so important to kind of, when you have that initial intake assessment, is to just talk about and get all of the background information, get the genogram, get the, the culture, all of those parts. What does the family structure look like? Because that gives us a better idea of what we're working with as clinicians and what that family structure looks like, to be able to better understand that individual and then be able to see what parts of that self-talk need to be restructured and in what way. Because was that negative self-talk born from parents, from culture, from trauma, from a negative experience? And that really kind of shapes and changes how we're going to help somebody to rewire that in a different lens.
So what if we
get
to the granular level, the everyday life, things that we say to ourselves? What about refocusing those? And we do it all the time. I mean, one thing we all say it, and I'm trying to get out of the mode of it. Even like, all right, we're going to dinner tonight. I can't wait to go to that restaurant. What do you mean you can't wait? What is that? That's a negative, as opposed to, I'm looking forward to us going to that restaurant tonight. Just reshaping some of the things we say. I got to go pick up my kid later, or got to go to work later.
So
isn't that negative?
One of the beautiful little words that we can imprint right inside of each sentence is the word and.
Yes.
Because that opens flexibility. So I had an interview this morning with an intern who wants to do his internship with us. And I was talking to him about our modalities and, how we approach and the eclecticness of our treatments. And one of the things that I spoke to him about, and it was funny because he's a first year, going to be a practicum. And he just was like, what? And I said, and we can hold two things at the same time. We can not want to pick up our kids and be happy to see them at the end of the day. There can be two emotions that are true at the same time. It doesn't have to be an or, because I think that we stop at the negative one, right? Oh, I have to go pick up my kid.
Yeah.
So now we're negative about, oh my God, now I have to, going on your example, now I have to leave the office, I have to go pick up my kid, versus putting an and in there. Well, I have to leave work to go pick up my kid, and well, now I'll have an opportunity to spend a little bit of extra time because I'm the pickup person.
And look at it this way. Let's say it's a athletic event, sporting event. You got to leave, you got to drop everything, pick them up. How about gratitude? Be grateful that your child is able enough to be part of a sporting event. Imagine, I'm going to go there, they were in a wheelchair for the rest of their lives. Would you still be saying that? No, you'd be running out the door so happy that if you had that choice. And I love your and I'm on your page with that. I try to, as much as I can, substitute the word and for but. Because when you use the word but, it negates what you said previously, and it's essentially it's negative. Right?
For sure. Yes. And opens us to the flexibility of holding two things at the same time. And it also, what it does is it opens up our minds to seeing more than one option as well. And the more that we exercise this, the more it is going to come naturally. One of the things that I work with my clients on is I'm not going to teach you a new skill in the middle of a crisis and tell you to go home and practice it because you're in the middle of a crisis. So the best work that you can do for long-term change is when you're not in a crisis. That's when you really, because the client can come in and now we have the opportunity in a stable place to be able to work on whatever coping skill or topic in that moment. So now I can assign you the homework assignment of, you're going to write down for every negative that you say, use the word and, or factor in, and then journal about it so that we can talk about it when you come back, or whatever the coping skill is that, that we're working on can best be executed when we're in a good place, because that's when we can practice our skills every single day. And we can look at, and for people who are stuck on the but, and they're really struggling to use the word and, I'll just add two more words to it, but at least. Doesn't have to end with just but. If your habit is to always go to that but, well, I don't like this, but if you just couch it just a little bit differently, but at least I can. So that kind of like, sometimes you have to baby step it over to the and then sometimes you baby step it over. And eventually what happens is you're retraining your brain to respond in a positive, different way. And the pause is also super important. That gives us a moment to reflect upon what we're going to say before we say it. It's going to give us a moment to ponder how we're going to perceive something before we experience it. So if we're had a negative experience and the last time we were at a basketball game, the ref made some really bad calls, you're going into this and you're saying, oh, here we go again, the same ref, he's going to have a negative experience. Well, you're going out on the court and you've already got yourself set up for a bad game. You don't even know what's going to happen, but your past experience is already just pulled right into the court. And what does that do to your motivation, to your skill, to your attitude, to your everything, right? Now you're in this negative spot because you're going to assume that the ref is going to make a bad call. Versus Maybe maybe the ref was having a bad day. Maybe the ref saw something that you didn't see. Maybe today's going to be a different opportunity. So we're going to go out and we're going to reshape that, and we're going to start fresh. We're going to hit the reset button, and we're going to have a different experience. And at the end of it, I would say, there's a pretty good chance, 75, 80% chance you're going to have a different experience that's a positive one.
Well, if you believe what many describe within energy, and that everything that we're doing in our lives, it's already been predetermined by our thoughts and our actions. You're asking for that ref to make another negative call. Could have been a one-off, but now you're throwing it out there using your energy, very powerful, those vibrations. Same thing, you spill some coffee first thing in the morning. Oh, it's going to be one of those days. What's coming next? Oh, boy. Clean the coffee up.
Right.
Change your shirt.
It's all in the mindset. It's all in how you look at it. I laughed one time when my grandson was a baby. I was like, when I had first gotten him, he was 3 weeks old, and I was just starting New Beginnings at the same time, and their conception of each other was not planned. And so I'm getting back into the world of parenting again after, my kids are grown and adults, and I'm running out the door and changing the baby's diaper. And as soon as the diaper comes off, he pees, right? So he pees. I'm like, oh, we're running late. I have a meeting. And so in that moment, I had choices on how I was going to respond. So I grabbed a wipey, I wiped off my pants, I dressed the baby, and I said, okay, well, but at least I had a wipey. That was, at least my pants are brown, or, because there was no way I'm walking out the door. I didn't have time to go through another outfit or whatnot. But I had choices in that moment of how I was going to look at it.
Yep.
And it was really just a matter of, well, I'm going to clean myself up the best I can, and out the door we're going to go, and just stay focused on what we're going towards, what that next kind of forward movement is.
And it's not that we're minimizing anybody's challenges, but it's all in the way you look at it. And Sherri, all those things that we're talking about, even using and not but, that kind of thing, is that essentially rewiring? Are we actually, in a small way, we're doing it?
Absolutely. So it's cognitive restructuring. It's what we're doing, is we're restructuring and reshaping our thinking, our thought processes, our perspectives, our outcomes. All of it is tied together. If you think about, everything starts with our minds. It starts with our experiences internally, and what our expectations are. And so as much as if you really just take a minute to think about the enormity of that, that we have the ability to change and reshape anything that comes in our path. It's really just the energy that we're going to give it, and the perspective that we're going to give it, and the openness to possibilities.
If somebody was negative in your life, would you, do things for them? Like they're just negative, maybe a little nasty. Would you keep feeding them, no. So why feed that negative within you? And I just looked at the clock. We're out of time. Like, how did that even happen?
Oh, wow.
Like what? It almost seemed surreal for a moment when I looked up. Well, it can't be. And by the way, I want to share with you I love the and thing. Where I learned that from, where I got that from? Kids.
You get that from?
Little kids.
Yeah.
They don't say but. They will. I went to the ice cream shop, and they had 32 flavors, and I got gummy worms on top, and I did this, and it was so amazing, and I got a drink with it, and we're going back tomorrow, and magical.
Right. And we have something to learn from all of that, because kids look at things in such depth. And as we get older with adults, with labels and titles, and my God, could do a whole, I actually just did a chapter of my book on that this weekend when I was in Mexico, and I was kind of voice talking, because I think it's such an important topic about how we're looking at things and how we stop really looking behind the word. So when we're little and we see this beautiful thing in the sky, we look at its feathers, and I actually thought of it because there was a bird, and there was these two must have been his babies, teaching him to bird. I was kind of sitting on the deck, and I was watching up, and I was like, when we look up and we see, oh, there's a bird, we don't stop to really look at what's happening. But when you just take that moment, you're like, wow, look, that's a mother or a father, and it's teaching its babies to fly. And it was just such an amazing thing to witness. And when we get into taking away all of that flexibility, we become really rigid in what our thinking is.
I just got a flash with what we're talking about. Song came out in the mid to late 80s by Cher, and it's called If I Could Turn Back Time. And there's one line in that song I never forgot. Words are like weapons. They can harm sometimes. They're your own weapons. You're harming yourself by using certain words. And that's just the beginning of the rewiring. You help people with this, you and your team, all the time. New Beginnings, WC.com. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that is correct.
Gotcha. Thank you for your positivity. And I really mean that. Like I feel more a positive vibe already, even just talking about this. And that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. We have to have hope in this world, for sure.
Appreciate you being here today, Sherri. Always. Thank you for your insight, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right. Sounds good. See you next week.
You got it. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Let's go inside the mind of a 10-year-old.
I should have worn those earrings today. I like those earrings. Gabby has those awesome earrings. I need to ask her where she got those, but that's just what she would want me to do. I'll have Michaela ask her for me.
Buckle up, Sarah.
Yeah, but then Michaela will be like, why don't you just ask her yourself? That's just like Michaela.
Sarah, buckle up.
Michaela's such a great name. I wish I was called Michaela. There's like a dozen Sarahs in my class.
Hey, we're not hitting the road until you buckle up, honey.
Oh yeah, seatbelt. I forget sometimes because my brain is like busy, you know? I wonder if there's pizza at school today.
Sometimes it can be tough to get through to your kids, but it's not impossible. Always make sure they're wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Remember, you have the keys, you have the power. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.